Welcome to 7th grade math. Review vocabulary. What is a least common denominator? The least common multiple of the denominators of two or more fractions. How do you find it? Find the least common multiple of the denominators. What is one reason for renaming fractions with least common denominators? To compare fractions with unlike denominators. How do you write a fraction in simplest form? Divide the numerator and denominator by their GCF, or greatest common factor. So 1 can be broken into 2 halves, 3/3, 4/4, 5/5, 6/6, 7/7, 8/8, 9/9, 10/10. You notice a pattern as the numerator stays the same and the denominator gets larger. The fraction gets smaller. Get ready for the lesson. Sean surveyed 10 classmates to find which abbreviation they use most when they instant message. What fraction uses later? 5 out of 10. So 5 used later most often, and there's a total of 10 responses. So it's 5 out of 10, or 5/10. What fraction uses be right back? 2/10. There's 10 total responses, so that's the denominator. And there's 2 that use be right back most often. So it's 2 out of 10. What fraction uses later or be right back? 7/10. So it's, if you add up the 5 and the 2, you get 7 out of 10. 7's the part, 10's the whole. So like fractions, fractions that have the same denominators, 5/10 and 2/10 are like fractions because they both have a denominator of 10. Words: to add or subtract like fractions, add or subtract the numerators and write the results over the denominators. So examples are 5/10 plus 2/10. It's going to be 5 plus 2 over 10, or 7/10. In algebra, we say A over C plus B over C equals A plus B over C. And C is not equal to 0. Remember, you cannot have C in the denominator. 11/12 minus 4/12. This works the same as addition. I have 11 minus 4 over 12, or 7/12. In algebra, it's A over C minus B over C. So we get A minus B over C, where C is not equal to 0. Again, you cannot have 0 in the denominator. Denominator names the units of what is being added or subtracted. For example, 1/5 plus 3/5 equals 4/5. Can be thought of as 1/5 plus 3/5 equals 4/5. Add 5/9 plus 2/9 and write in the simplest form. So we have 5/9 plus 2/9 equals 5 plus 2 over 9. And if we add the numerators, we get 7/9. And there is a picture of just a visual demonstration with rectangles. We have the 5/9, we have the 2/9, have 7/9. Subtract 9/10 minus 1/10, and then write in simplest form. So 9/10 minus 1/10 equals 9 minus 1 over 10. Subtract the numerators, so we get 8/10, and write the sum over the denominator. And then there is our example. We have 8/10 or 9/10. We subtract 1/10, and we end up with 8/10. And then if we simplify by dividing the numerator and denominator by 2, we'll get 4/5. So 1/6 plus 3/6, if we do 1 plus 3 over 6, we get 4/6. and then we can simplify by dividing the numerator and denominator by 2, and we get 2/3. 3/7 minus 1/7 is the same as 3 minus 1 over 7, which is 2/7. Scaffolding questions. What is the sum of 1/8 inch and 4/8 inch? So we have a piece of a ruler here, or measuring tape, and it's broken up into different lengths. So 1/8 is recognized there in the blue shading, and then we need to add 4/8, so 4 of those, which is in the purple, and we get 5/8. All we have to do is add the numerators to get 1 plus 4 over 8 equals 5/8. What is the sum of 2/4 inch and 1/4 inch? So 2/4 inch is also a 1/2 inch. So you can see that we're going halfway to 1. And 1/4 inch goes to the purple area. And if we add that up, it's 3/4 of an inch. What is the sum of 3/16 inch and 5/16 inch? So there's 3/16, and now we need to add 5/16, which will give us 8/16, which is also a 1/2. If we were to simplify the 8 and the 16 by 2, we'd get 1/2. Unlike fractions, fractions with different denominators, to add or subtract unlike fractions, rename the fractions using the LCD, or the least common denominator, then add or subtract as with like fractions. Least common denominator, the least common multiple of the denominators of 2 or more fractions. So example, the least common denominator of 1/4 and 2/3 is 12. Add and subtract unlike fractions. Add 1/2 plus 1/6, and then write in simplest form. So we'll estimate for a check 1/2 plus 0 equals 1/2. And we'll come back to that at the end of the problem. So method 1, use the model. We have 1/2 and we have 1/6. If we create a new block of cells, we will have 4/6. And if we simplify, that's 2/3. And then method 2 is using the least common denominator. So the least common denominator of 1/2 and 1/6 is 6, because 6 is a multiple of 2. So 1/2 plus 1/6, we're going to rename using the least common denominator 6. So in order to get 6 in the denominator, we multiply by 3. So we're going to multiply the numerator by 3 as well. So we get 3/6. And then 1/6, we don't have to do anything to it, but we're going to show that visually by multiplying times 1 over 1, which is the identity property. And then 3/6 plus 1/6, we'll add those together now and get 4/6. And then we can simplify that by dividing the numerator and denominator by 2, and we get 2/3. So 1/2 plus 1/6 equals 2/3. And we can check against our estimate, and 2/3 is fairly close to 1/2. So it's 2/3 is about 1/2. So that does check. Renaming fractions. To rename a fraction, multiply both the numerator and the denominator of the original fraction by the same number. So in this example, we multiplied the numerator and denominator we of the fraction 1/2 by each by 3 to get 3/6. By doing so, the renamed fraction has the same value as the original fraction. So 3/6 and 1/2 are equivalent fractions. Subtract 11/12 minus 3/8, write in simplest forms. So we're going to estimate, and we're going to change 11/12 to 1 and 3/8 to 1/2, because it's almost a 1/2, and we get 1/2. And we'll come back to that later. So use prime factorization to find the least common denominator of 12 and 8. So for 12, the prime factors are 2 times 2 times 3, or 2 squared times 3. And then the prime factors of 8 are 2 times 2 times 2, or 2 cubed. So we're going to take the highest power of all the prime factors to find the least common multiple. So in this case, we're going to take the 2 cubed because it's more than the 2 squared. And we're going to take the 3. It's the only 3. And we end up with 2 cubed times 3, which is 8 times 3, or 24. So we're going to rename each fraction using the least common multiple in the denominator. So for 11/12, we know that 12 times 2 is 24. So we have to multiply 11 times 2 to get 22. So the first fraction, 11/12 becomes 22/24. And then for the second fraction of 3/8, we know that to get 8 to 24, we have to multiply it times 3. So that means we have to multiply the numerator times 3. We get 9/24. Now we can subtract 3/8 from 11/12 with the renamed fractions. So 22/24 minus 9/24 equals 13/24. If we check that against the estimate for reasonableness, 13/24 is about 1/2. It's 1/24 more than a half, so it's reasonable to say that those are about the same. Fusion method, 8/9 minus 2/3. We're going to use prime factorization to find the least common denominator of 9 and 3. And you may already recognize right now that 9 is a multiple of 3. So that will be, 9 will be the least common denominator. But if we're going to do the math, the prime factors of 9 are 3 times 3, or 3 squared. And the prime factors of 3 is 3. So we have 3 squared and 3. And we're going to take the highest power of all the prime factors. So in this case, we're just going to take the 3 squared from 9. And 3 squared equals 9. So that is our least common denominator. Rename each fraction using the least common multiple in the denominator. So we don't have to do anything to 8/9 because 9 is already our least common denominator. But just to show that, we'll use the identity property, multiply times 1/1, get 8/9. And then to change 2/3 to a fraction, an equivalent fraction that has 9 in the denominator, we're going to multiply 3 times 3 to get 9 in the denominator. So we have to multiply the numerator of 2 times 3 to get 6. And then now we can rename 8/9 minus 2/3 as 8/9 minus 6/9, and we get 2/9. 5/6 minus 3/8. Prime factorization of 6 and 8. Prime factors of 6 are 2 and 3. Prime factors of 8 are 2 cubed. And we're going to take the highest power from each. So we'll take the 2 cubed, and we'll take the 3. And we get 2 cubed times 3, which is 8 times 3, or 24. Now we're going to rename each fraction. In order to get 5/6 to something over 24, we have to multiply 6 times 4 to get 24. So we'll multiply 5 times 4 to get 20. And then in order to get 3/8 into a fraction, an equivalent fraction with a denominator of 24, we multiply 3 times 8 to get 24. And we'll multiply 3 times 3 to get 9. So now we're going to rename 5/6 minus 3/8 as 20/24 minus 9/24. And we get 11/24. 7/8 plus 3/4. Use prime factorization to find the LCD of 8 and 4. So the prime factorization of 8 is 2 times 2 times 2, which is 2 cubed. And the prime factorization of 4 is 2 times 2, which is 2 squared. We'll take the highest power of all prime factors and to find the least common multiple. That's 2 cubed, which is more than 2 squared. So 2 cubed equals 8, and that's our least common denominator. We could have looked at the original problem and known that 8 is a multiple of 4, and known that that automatically is going to make 8 our least common multiple or least common denominator. So now we're going to rename each fraction using the least common multiple in a denominator. So 7/8 we don't have to change, so we'll just show that visually using the identity property. 7/8 times 1/1, or 7/8 times 1 equals 7/8. And then to change 3/4 to an equivalent fraction with a denominator of 8, we need to multiply the denominator 4 times 2 to get 8, which means we also have to multiply the numerator of 3 times 2 to get 6. So if we add, or we're going to rename 7/8 plus 3/4 as 7/8 plus 6/8, and we get 13/8. And if we change that from an improper fraction to a mixed number, we will get 1 5/8. Real world examples. In a recent survey, students were asked what they would choose for a healthy lunch. The results are shown in the graph. What fraction more of the students chose salad bar rather than a deli sandwich? So there's a salad bar, 9/20, and the deli sandwich is 3/25. So let's find a difference. And we get 9/20 minus 3/25. And the least common multiple of 20 and 25 is 100. So in order to get 9/20 to an equivalent fraction with a denominator of 100, we have to multiply the numerator and denominator by 5. And in order to get 3/25 to an equivalent fraction with a denominator of 100, we need to multiply 25 times 4, so we also need to multiply 3 times 4. And if we rename those as 45 over 100 minus 12 over 100, we're going to get 33 100ths. In a recent survey, students were asked what they would choose for a healthy lunch. The results are shown in the graph. So this is the same graph as the last slide. And what fraction of the students chose pizza or chicken nuggets? So pizza is 3/20 and chicken nuggets is 1/10. Now, because it said or, we want to find out how many chose one or the other. So we're going to need to add those together. So we need to do 3/20 plus 1/10. And the least common multiple of 20 and 10 is 20. Hopefully that jumped out at you because 20 is a multiple of 10. So that is going to be our least common denominator. And we don't need to do anything to 3/20, so we'll use the identity property there just to show you that. And then we're going to add that to 1/10, which is going to be in the equivalent fraction with a denominator of 20. And in order to make that happen, we need to multiply 10 times 2. So we also need to multiply the numerator 1 times 2. So if we rename the fractions 3/20 plus 2/20, we will get 5/20, and we can simplify that by dividing the numerator and denominator each by 5, and we get 1/4. So we have the same graph here, and it wants to know this time what fraction more of the students chose a deli sandwich rather than a burger. So we have the burger as 1/10 and the deli sandwich as 3/25. We need to find a difference. So we're going to take 1/10 away from 3/25, or 3/25 minus 1/10. And we need to find the least common multiple, or the least common denominator. And the least common multiple of 25 and 10 is 50. So if we rewrite 3/25 as an equivalent fraction with 50 in the denominator, we're going to multiply 25 times 2 and 3 times 2. And then if we're going to rewrite 1/10 as an equivalent fraction with 50 in the denominator, we're going to multiply 10 times 50 and 1 times 10 times 5 and 1 times 5. Find a difference. So let's rename those as 6/50 minus 5/50 and subtract the numerators. So 1/50 more of the students chose a deli sandwich rather than a burger. Add or subtract right in simplest form. 7/12 plus 4/12. So we have like denominators, so they are like fractions. So we just need to add the numerators. So we get 11/12. 5/6 minus 1/6. We have like denominators or the same denominators, so we have like fractions. So we just need to subtract the numerators. 5 minus 1 is 4, so 4/6. And we can simplify that dividing the numerator and denominator by 2. 1/3 plus 1/9. We have unlike denominators, unlike fractions, so we need to convert 1/3 and 1/9 to equivalent or like fractions. 9 is the least common denominator. 9 is a multiple of 3, so we know that that will be the least common multiple. So we have 3/9 plus 1/9, and now that they are like fractions, we can just add the numerators and get 4/9. We have 3/4 minus 1/6, which are unlike fractions. So we need to find the least common denominator, and in this case it's 12. So to get 4 to 12, we need to multiply it times 3. So we'll multiply 3 times 3 to get 9/12. And then in order to get 6 to 12, we need to multiply it by 2. So we'll multiply the numerator 1 times 2 to get 2/12. Now that they are like fractions, we can just subtract the numerators, and we get 9 minus 2 is 7 over 12. Picture mounted on artboard is 1/8 inch thick. The frame of the picture is 1/2 inch thick. How much thicker than the picture is the frame? So we can say the frame is 1/2 and the picture is mounted on 1/8 inch. So it's 1/2 minus 1/8. We need to find the least common denominator because these are unlike fractions. 8 is a multiple of 2, so that will be our least common denominator. And to get 2 to 8, we multiply it times 4. So we also have to multiply the numerator times 4. So we get 4/8 minus 1/8. And now we just subtract the numerators and we get 3/8 of an inch is the difference. And Jean ate 5/12 of a pizza. Ambrose ate 1/3 of the pizza. How much pizza did they eat together? So we have unlike fractions, and we want to add those together. So we have 5/12 plus 1/3, because remember, we're trying to see how much they ate together or combined. And we need to, they're unlike fractions, so we need to find the least common denominator. 12 is a multiple of 3, so that will be our least common denominator. So we have 5/12, which is the original fraction. Then we need an equivalent fraction for 1/3 that has 12 in the denominator. So we multiply 3 times 4 to get 12. So we have to multiply the numerator times 4 to get 4/12. And if we add 5 and 4, we get 9/12. And we can simplify that by dividing the numerator and denominator by 3, and we get 3/4. So they, Jean and Ambrose ate 3/4 of the pizza. Here's your homework. Head over to Google Classrooms to submit it. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you in class.